Hey, this is Todd. This is one of a new series of videos I'm going to be doing. More of a video blog. I'm calling it Game Master Screed, which is a play on Game Master Screen. Screed being, I think, a long-winded speech, which hopefully this won't be too long-winded, but I wanted to use these videos to talk a little bit about either things I'm doing sort of behind the scenes on the channel, what's coming up, what I want to talk about, maybe some topics that by themselves aren't enough that I want to spend a whole targeted video on them, but I can hit a couple of rapid fire stuff and just other things I can talk about. I want to use these to sort of fill in. I want to keep a better schedule going of videos, and sometimes between when I have a targeted video, it's nice to just talk about some various stuff that's going on, and I feel like I can use this format to talk about that. If you're only interested in videos on particular topics, then feel free to skip this one, but hopefully you'll stick around. That said, let's get to it. So first things first, I'm filming this on the Monday after Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to everyone. It was also free RPG Day on Saturday, and I happened to hit this one. Usually I miss those events, free RPG Day, free comic book day, all those kind of free in-the-blank days, simply because I don't ever seem to be in the loop as far as when they're happening, and then I always get there, or I think about it way too late, and I'm not someone who wants to wait in a long line to get a freebie, whether it's free vinyl or free book, free comic, whatever it is. And anytime I happen to stumble across a place on one of these days, I see the line going around the block. I'm in New York City. If you end up, say, on Free Comic Book Day going by, Midtown Comics, there's usually a really long line, and to me, it's just not worth it. But I happen to have an opening in my schedule on Saturday afternoon into the evening, and just kind of took a flyer and went by one of my local game shops. In this case, it was Brooklyn Strategist. And sure enough, they had some stuff. So I picked it up. I bought this Subterra. Something been on my list. It's a single player game. It also has co-op, survival. Seemed really cool. I'll do more about that later. I think on Twitter and maybe a couple other places I did a little speed run where I unboxed it, so you can check that out if it's interesting to you. As far as role-playing game stuff, this is one of the freebies. Pathfinder adventure card game, storybook, We Be Heroes. Seems pretty interesting. I have the Pathfinder base game. It's up country at another location, but I'll take this up there and play it out. Seems pretty cool. Has some nice goblins. Those same goblins show up in the other piece of Pathfinder kit, which was there for free RPG Day, which was this second edition playtest adventure, which is also We Be Heroes. Same goblins. This time let's see, where they are, like over here. I'm really interested in the second edition of Pathfinder. I've only read slightly through the playtest stuff. It's one of those things, it's a weird spot for me because back in the day, I was one of those people that for a while was chasing always the latest edition. So, if we were going to 3 and then 3.5 and then 4 and then 5, we're chasing all that. And since then, I've fallen back and rediscovered my love for the older games of my youth. I cut my teeth on Basic Expert and first edition and second edition a little bit later on. So coming away from third edition, coming into fourth, I was at a point where I was definitely feeling the overload of crunch in the 3.x ecosystem. And so Pathfinder, while I appreciated what they're trying to do, which was give a lot of people who weren't ready to leave 3.x another option, which I actually think is really cool, at the same time it was continuing a niche that was no longer interesting to me. So now we get to their second edition, which I think is doing some of the same streamlining that fifth edition did. But while fifth edition is I feel like has done about as good a job as maybe you can expect with streamlining rules, really taking third edition, fourth edition, kind of smushing them together, bringing in a little bit of flavor from earlier editions, but taking really those two and streamlining it out. I wonder what the audience for second edition of Pathfinder is, because I don't think it's going to out-streamline 5th edition if it was going to try to. I mean, there are definitely other rules, lighter systems, but streamlining it in a way that gives people the crunch that I think that most people want, and getting rid of a lot of the cruff that, yes, there are some people that want it, but has let's face it, a much more niche appeal. So if second edition is not going to go that far, but they're not. If it is going to be more streamlined, then what's going to happen with all the play of all the Pathfinder first edition people who really stayed with it for all that super heavy crunch? So I'm kind of curious as to how that's going to line up. I haven't been following the play test very much, but I am interested in it. I think some of the things I've heard and read snippets of sound really cool, but I'm curious how that's going to play out because I feel like it's going to get caught. It seems like it's going to get caught a little bit in this crossfire of not crunchy enough for the Pathfinder 1.0 hardcore folks, not streamlined enough to really pull a lot of people off of 5th edition. So, who is going to really, what audience is going to step up into that fold? But I'm sure there's some, because I know there are definitely people who feel like maybe 5th edition streamlined a little bit too much, but still don't want as much as the 3.x Pathfinder stuff. But I'm curious to see how big an audience that is and how that shakes out. Another Paizo Starfinder called Skitter Crash. That's another nice one. This one's I think I have Starfinder, the PDF I bought, I think. Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of Stars Without Number. Either way, sci-fi game. Seems cool. I will read through it. Also got this one, Modern Age. It's called Threefold. It's a quick start. This one's a pretty, you can see it's a pretty serious, lengthwise. I think they say it's about, 34, 36 pages. Be pretty cool. I've heard about this one. Haven't really read too much, so I'll read in that one. This one I'd never heard about before. Outbreak Undead. Intro manual. This is another good sized book coming in at about, you can see it's thick. Good stuff here. Inmate something or other. 40 pages thereabouts. 40, including charts and things. I don't know got a whole bunch of these. I don't know what they are, but seems pretty cool. That's the playtest stuff, that was the free RPG stuff. So I'm glad for that. I did put a couple of bucks in a raffle for a Beholder mini, painted mini. I'm guessing I didn't win because I didn't hear from anybody. So bummed out on that one, but it was a good little haul, something I wasn't expecting at all. So on the next part of the Hex, I'm thinking on the next Hex video I do, I think I've covered most of the basic stuff. So I've got, setting up your Hex map, prepping everything, and then what the procedures are for running through the hexes. So I think the next topic that to me is important is integrating or how to deal with player powers in Hexcrawl, and that's specifically going to be targeted. I know there's a lot comes up with what to do with Rangers or the revised Ranger at least, and Druids and things like Goodberry in your Hexcrawl. I think people they get a little too pessimistic on it. I think they read too much into what they can do, what these powers do. And so they end up saying something like, you can't run a Hexcrawl in 5th edition if you have a revised Ranger because of their survival ability. Or, Goodberry ruins the Hexcrawls. I don't believe that's true. Now, certainly there are going to be certain challenges that if you have somebody who has a lot of points in survival, or you have somebody who can create food and water for you, it's going to minimize some challenges. It's not going to minimize all the challenges, though, and it can actually create more opportunities for that. So I want to go into that, talk about it a little bit. It's something that it doesn't come up just in Hexcrawls, so I will probably have a video that talks about it as it pertains to Hexcrawls. The Hexcrawl videos I've done recently seem to be the most popular videos in my channel by a large margin, so it seems like there's definitely a need for a lot of information on Hexcrawls, and not only that, but people seem to be hungry for it, so that's great, and I will be producing more of that, and I'm going to put together some print supplement materials as well on Hexcrawls that will hopefully tie a lot of this together and give people a resource that they can have at their table to use. But this is something that comes up in a lot of different spaces, and I'm not sure if it's worth a separate video talking about just in general. Even just the last couple of days I've read stuff. One of them I read, I think it was in a Facebook group, and someone wanted to have everybody get a disease in this world, but they have a paladin in their party who's immune to diseases. So they were trying to figure out, well, is it okay if I just basically overwrite that immunity so that they can have the disease too. And my first response to that was, why are you doing that, right? And maybe this will be the title of if I do a general video, which is that basically I used to have a book, or I still have a book somewhere on screenplay writing, which was your screenplay sucks. And the idea on that was that you really need to look at your screenplay with a critical eye. You finish a draft, you may be in love with it, but you really got to come back and look at it and say, you know what, it's not as good as you think it is. So as an impetus to really rewrite it and get it nice and tight. In terms of Dungeon Masters, I feel like something similar statement could be made basically is your story sucks. And the reason why I say that is, and I include my stories, and this applies to everybody, is that don't treat your story like it's something precious. If you're looking at, do I need to break this character's power to keep my story the way I want it, and you say, I'm going to break that power, that's the wrong way to look at it. Really what you want to do is think about, look at the story opportunities, look at the opportunities for choices and interesting things that happen when you allow player powers to be what they are. I think it's a much more interesting story if you have the world is diseased, but only paladins are not diseased by it. And who knows how many paladins there are. You could play it that character is a paladin, is the only paladin in the world, the only person who is immune to disease. And what does that do? That to me is way more interesting than just saying, well, you know what, we're going to scratch out that power on your sheet because it doesn't fit with my story. I think that's baloney. You got to be more creative than that. Challenge yourself. The easiest, lowest hanging solution is let me scratch off the character power so I can make my story go. But that's the weakest excuse to me of what you could do. Think creatively. Challenge yourself to say, okay, so this player character is immune to this disease. Great. What interesting opportunities does that unlock? Because I guarantee you it's more interesting than the rote stories that you're going to have if you just gave everybody the disease. And that's really the same thing with hex crawling, the same thing with all these things where you see a player power and you look at it as a detriment to your story. Remember, your story sucks. Your story should not be precious. Don't worry about your story. Forget your story. Look at the opportunities that these things create. I understand if you're in a setting of scarcity like Dark Sun, and so you don't want to have druids with good berries, but let's say you have someone who creates a druid. Maybe they're the last druid. Maybe they're the only one. Maybe it's something like, I don't know, The Last Airbender, where there used to be druids and they're all gone, and now this person has discovered some power. And so, yeah, they have good berries, and it makes things easier for them in Dark Sun. But, look at the role-playing possibilities you have if you have this one person who can create this kind of food, and nobody else has that. Just think about all the kind of interesting interactions you could have with that. Embrace that as opposed to being the more curmudgeonly, I have to control everything so that my story that I wrote is so important. I really think that story is super overrated. I feel like Dungeon Masters and Game Masters, whatever, would be much better off if they really just chucked the idea of having these I'm the storyteller thing and just chucked it in the trash. Whenever I see someone who's going to be a GM and they say something like, well, I took a course in creative writing, or I'm a writer, I'm very creative, I just want to say, you know what, it doesn't matter, because that's not really the most important skill to me in game mastering. It's not this creativity. You can get ideas from things, that's all, it's fine and good, but really there's so much more to the being able to essentially riff off everything that's going on, to take complications, to take opportunities and open them up to the players and put them in a world where they can make choices and those choices have consequences, and running all that kind of management stuff, to me, is way more valuable than the person who says they're have a MBA in creative writing. Because the person who's the creative writer is going to want to focus on their story. They're going to take that storyteller thing to heart, and they're going to want to tell their story. And they're going to start to impinge on everything else because they got to keep things on their story. And look, your motives may be true. Your motives may be great. You want to tell the best story in the world, but you're doing that. You're railroading. You're just plowing over all these player choices. Better to let your stories die. Better to let them go and just say, you know what, my story's not that great. I bet you the players will come up with a better story. Let me do that, right? That to me is the better thing, because you can go on Reddit and you can read all these people posting their stories. This is my campaign thing. This is the campaign I just ran. This is what I want to run for the next campaign. You can read all these stories, and you know what you're going to find? A lot of these stories repeat themselves. You see the same things and all these different stories, and I'm not saying they were all copying each other, but it's just clear that people have the same sort of ideas you're going to run into over and over again, and they're not that great. I guarantee you, if you took the best role-playing campaign story and you took out the fact that you have memories of characters who really played it well, like take Critical Role, right? Really, the joy of that show comes from the interactions between all of them, but really the characters in those situations. If you took all that out and you just wrote down the plot of the story, I guarantee you it's not that great. It's not some of you are going to go, oh my gosh, the story is so amazing, this plot is so great. No, it's a combination of all these things that are happening at the table. The actual events that they're doing is only one part of that, and it may actually be the least important part of it. But that's the end of my spiel on that. But that'll probably be the next Hexcrawl video that I do. I do have a Patreon. It's been kind of wallowing. I have not been a good Patreon maker as far as keeping things updated. I'm probably going to relaunch it a little bit because I could use the support as far as doing this stuff, and it'd be great if people could support me if they feel like it. Obviously likes help, subscriptions help. But if anyone wants to take that next level, I will probably be relaunching that soon. I'm on Reddit, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. So if you have ideas of things that you've seen me cover, you want me to cover something else, or just whatever, reach out and find me. I think I have links to pretty much at least the main social networks in the video description, so you always have that to click on. I'll try to have another one of these in a few days. Like I said, I'm going to work on that next Hexcrawl video. I'm probably going to try to do some more product reviews. I did a couple of those earlier on. I sort of let them pass by the wayside as I was doing more Game Master sort of tips and tricks type videos, but I'm probably going to circle back to those. A lot of my OSR videos, my basic expert videos, are also ones that seem to gather a lot of interest, so I may go back to those. Either do some more basic expert stuff or do some more first edition things. I have a ton of modules I could go through and do some content on that, so let me know if any of that interests you. I hope if you made it this far, thanks for watching. If you didn't, I totally get it. I'll have another, Hexcrawls, more DM-centric video coming up soon. And don't worry about this one. It's going to be, a little bit long. And my goal with this one is they're going to be more casual. I'm not going to spend a lot of time editing it. Pretty much going to drop, the intro, the outro, and pretty much throw it up on YouTube. So it's going to be a little bit more of a rough cut than the other videos. But, that said, I hope you enjoyed listening, and I will talk to you later.